The Software Leaders Uncensored podcast, where tech leaders grow beyond the code.
You're listening to Software Leaders Uncensored, the raw, real talk podcast for tech execs tired of buzzwords and BS. I'm Steve Taplin, CEO, author, and currently writing my second book about what I've learned from building 30 ventures, facing 20 failures, and achieving 10 wins. I've taken companies all the way through going public, franchising nationwide, and raising tens of millions of dollars. The common thread for me has been building custom software as the secret sauce behind every company. Now, through my company Sonatify, I help tech leaders scale smarter with a nearshore software engineers who move fast and deliver. Each episode, I get the honor of sitting down with real tech experts to unpack what's working, what's broken in the marketplace, and what actually matters. No theory, no fluff. Let's dive in. Today, I'm very honored to have Chad Smykay as our guest. Chad has one of the coolest titles of anyone I've ever seen, AI CTO, of this small organization called HP Enterprises, HPE, that only has a $22 billion market cap. Chad has had a phenomenal software-led career, AI, everything from CTO, technologist, board of directors, engineer, architect. Chad, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on.
Hey, thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Yeah, wow, you make me sound really good with an intro like that. Appreciate it.
So please tell everybody about the journey of your career and how you've ended up with the coolest title at one of the biggest companies out there, AI CTO. I love it.
Yeah, great. So I actually started primarily most of my operation experience at Rackspace. It used to be called Rackspace Managed Hosting. I think they're just Rackspace Technology, or maybe just Rackspace for short. People like to shorten things, right? Make it correct. Yeah. So I got my start there in the operations side, testing out a lot of cloud solutions, what we call now cloud, but we weren't calling them that back in the day.
Back then, it was just somebody else's data center, right?
That's right. And so, and we're talking about 10 years of operation, 10 years plus operations experience, building out really heavy use shared services. And then from there, went into the sales side. Any good manager told me I was good with customers. And so that's where I went on my journey and into a lot of storage systems, distributed storage systems. And then that's actually where I got my machine learning chops, was in the big data era. Everybody kind of forgets that was the stepping stone for AI that we see today. It really was. It was nice to see Jensen actually at his keynote at GTC this year mentioned it. There was something called AlexNet and MXNet. These were some of the early frameworks before Transformers was built that Google put out.
AI just didn't pop up, with ChatGPT.
Yeah, a lot of lessons learned there from everybody. So it was really good. So did a lot of machine learning projects, predictive machine learning, prescriptive machine learning projects. So literally had hands to keyboard, helping customers deploy these and scale these things in fairly large environments. And then, right, ChatGPT, we all know that story popped up. And then, so it leads me to where my experience. So that company actually got acquired by Hewlett Packard Enterprises. And then led me into my journey to this AI CTO. Very cool title, but there does come some experience with that.
All right. So thanks for that background, Chad. So AI CTO, tell us what that means within your organization.
Yeah, great question. So, today, what that means is I primarily have conversations with various different personas across organizations, across many different verticals. Typically, it's the Fortune 500s and even Fortune 1000s. And around either the AI journeys, where they've been, where they're going. And then a lot of that is around software delivery, software principles, because you can't deploy these things without understanding that. There's a lot of software that goes into it before you even get to an AI use case, if you're going to serve it out properly. And so that's where my experience comes in, and being able to have those conversations with the customer and really dig in. Where are they today? Where are the gaps? And how can somebody like myself, and as well as our solutions that we have at Hewlett Packard Enterprises, help them on their journey?
So, you're dealing with the largest of large clients out there. On this show, we have everybody from Series A, B, and C companies that are disrupting a certain industry to startups all the way through Fortune 500 companies. And, when you even talk about the word AI and the ability to implement it, it all kind of comes back to your data and how structured is your data. And that's the biggest mess I see in the marketplace, companies large and small. And so from a Fortune 500 perspective, how bad are you seeing it out there with are the big players coming around to having the appropriate data lakes, data warehouses so that they can truly use AI?
Yeah, they are. They already have a lot of those systems today, but it's interesting you bring that up about the data. When we were getting early with some early pilots or proof of concepts with AI the last year and a half, we were seeing some folks not really concentrating on the data, they're just more on the use case. And then now it's funny, just this last probably 3 months, this is how fast it's moving. All of a sudden it's coming back around to how important the data is, and not necessarily how clean it is, but what is it, where is it in your organization, and what does it mean? What's in it, what's in the data has become super important, because you can't just take in the data until you hear all about RAG as an example. That works for about 10 documents, maybe 100. When you get to thousands, things start to break. And where they start to break actually is with the data. So a good example of that is I was working with a customer in the energy vertical, and they were doing a use case to take in all these thousands of PDFs. And they actually found, well, wait a minute, in this PDF, there's an image that actually has text in it. And you're like, oh. So there's a whole other problem. So we're back to, in some cases, we've got digital-led, digital transformation data. It's all digital, but even the data itself isn't in a format that these can ingest and you can do stuff quickly. So we're going back where data lakes are becoming important again and taking a look at it and probably reprocessing a little bit to get ready for these use cases. So yes, absolutely, it's more important than ever. And then having a data lake just makes it easier for organizations to do that. If you don't have them, then maybe you're having to take a couple steps back and go set something up to be able to handle that.
So what are some fun cutting edge projects you're working on? And obviously you don't give client names. We don't want to give any confidential information, but talk about some of the fun challenges and projects that you're implementing right now.
And sometimes it's, there's life sciences projects that are really cool, because, we're literally going to be saving lives with what we're trying to do on the life sciences research. Those are probably the biggest, most complex, and most exciting. But sometimes it's the simple, fun ones. Even internally right here, we're working on a project. At our headquarters down here in Houston, Texas, we have something we call BA. It's not a good name. TBD trademark. But we have real beehives at our headquarters. It's a part of our Hives for Heroes project. So it helps folks in the military. They go get jobs at this Hive for Heroes. They help maintain these beehives, people with PTSD. What we're doing is we're putting sensors on those hives, and we're trying to put some predictability around it. Can we figure out queen loss or some kind of disease is going on? And we're talking about even adding microphones to it. So something fun like that, where
Interesting.
Very different, using data out there that possibly a lot of people don't have, or some people do have, and then applying these AI principles to it is really fun.
I think if I got too close to these beehives, I'd probably have PTSD.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned before the show you were working on private AI agents. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so the private AI agents is really, we're getting into, folks are understanding that if I'm going to put my data out there in these AI models, I need to start being careful what that is. And I always tell customers, you got to be careful, because you could literally be putting the knowledge corpus of your entire company out in these open models. And you go read the T's and C's. I'm not making it up. They'll use that data and they'll retrain it on the next run. They'll say, hey, great.
2 months ago, there was a big story of a Microsoft engineer who was fired for putting code into public ChatGPT, and the code was out there. It's definitely happening.
And it may not show up right away. It's not a thing where the code's going to be leaked. What's going to happen is when they do another training run, 6 months, even a year from now, somebody's going to ask for, I need an example on this piece of code, and that may be what you get back. Right?
Exactly.
That's what it's training with your knowledge corpus of your company. So when we talk about private AI agents, we're just talking about having software framework out there to be able to use typically these open source models to apply to your internal business needs, but to make sure that data just doesn't get out there and leak. And those typically are implemented with several different frameworks out there. I call it the Lang star, Lang chain, Lang flow. There's several. I always like to call it Lang stars, and
I like it. That works.
Yeah. It's a very popular framework. That's used. There's a couple others, but really the goal is just to keep them private, and then be able to continuously work on them, and we'll keep them as open as possible, meaning as open source as possible, so you're not locked into any kind of one solution out there.
Gotcha. That's great advice. Let's talk about, Chad. I always have to laugh, but if we were to line up 10 tech leaders and ask each one of them what AI is, we would probably get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
As an AI CTO, what's your view on that?
especially if the word agentic or AI agent or agents comes up. That's what you'll get right now. I still get 10 different answers on training. There's still a lot of, and by training, I mean training a model. I'll get on calls with customers like, well, we want to train it. I was like, oh, that's excellent. You want to train your own model? Okay. What data sets do you have? What tools are you using to identify the labels, to track the labels across those data sets? And then we're like, whoa, we just mean fine tuning. Like, what they kind of back. If that, just nomenclature, it's going to take a while because in technology, we all learn from each other. And in the past, that's taken about 3 to 5 years. This market has moved so fast. I mean, everyone sees the Chat GPTs and the Geminis, but me just all I do is AI machine learning models all day. I read these newsletters and and archive papers. I would say X archive. I don't know why, because there's a big X in it, but archive papers. And there's stuff coming out every day. I mean,
It's
just
definitely moving fast.
year and a half, the amount of just what this being called small language models or even the frameworks to support them, every day there's something new. And that's the piece that a lot of people aren't seeing. So it's just nomenclature will take time, and then we'll figure out the agent piece. Everyone's got their own opinion on it. I don't really care how we define the agent. My only feedback on that is, as a large organization, you have to think about integration, just like any tool. I can go create an agent that sits over here off to the side and does something for my business. But if it's not automated in a fashion where it's a little more hands off, that's the piece, the connected piece. We have to connect that agent into our organization. And that's really what nobody's talking about. There's the connected tissue piece from taking in whatever I built in the AI and actually making it worthwhile for my business to use it and have continuous use. But yeah, those are the two things. This nomenclature of the AI, it gets misused. The training one is I still run into it. Mean by training, and then the agent and agentic AI is still a lot of confusion.
Very good. All good points. All right, let's switch gears. You're working with a lot of different large organizations. In a perfect world, what's your favorite tech stack for building AI, software-led machine learning solutions? What would be the ideal tech stack?
I mean, my ideal tech stack would be something that is served out on a system like Kubernetes, but it doesn't have to be, that can scale out. So it gives you flexibility to scale out and has as many API layers that I can communicate with. I mean, that's from the highest level, which is why something like Kubernetes is so valuable now. It's funny, when people were talking about Kubernetes 18 years ago, we didn't realize how valuable the APIs would be. But when you look at something like MCP, the Model Context Protocol, which, by the way, I've never seen something adopted so quickly in the industry. This is what nobody else is talking about. Like, it came out, Anthropic published it mid last year, and OpenAI is on it, Google's on it, and then I don't know if you see the list, it's just a bandwagon. Everybody's on board now. But you're talking in 6 months, something has been adopted in the technology.
That's insane, even in the fast-moving world of tech. That's absolutely insane.
But that's it. So something that I can quickly scale up through API management is always my go-to. I'm the kind of person where if you launch a product, you're a startup, and you have a solution, I'm going to your doc page and I'm looking, do you have any APIs? Are they documented? Right? Is there some security layer? Do you have authentication? So for me, APIs are key, and we're seeing it now. It's going to become more important than ever. I think these AIs of the world will just sit there and communicate through API calls back and forth to each other here in the next 3 years when we start getting them working in some kind of ecosystem. So it's going to be just
What's your view on open source?
open source. Still love it. I mean, it's come back around again. It's the same thing that happened with the big data market, with the Hadoop market. We used to call it the Hadoop soup or the Apache soup. You had a lot of Apache ecosystem, which is a licensing model, Apache 2.0 licensing model, came out, and there was just project after project coming out after year. It seemed crazy. It's very similar to what's happening in the market with models. Even in the open source model side, we're seeing model after model being announced every month, every 2 weeks, or being updated every 2 weeks. So there's very similar process happening right now. We're getting a ton of models, where before in the big data world, we were getting a lot of tools. So love it. It's obviously proof positive. The Hadoop market with Apache proved out that open source is powerful. We saw a lot of tool sets come out of that. And now we're seeing the same thing happen with these models. So we've already seen it before. We're just proving out again with these models. So it's been proven.
I would definitely agree. All right. So next question for you. How, from your vantage point, how has enterprise level software development changed over the past decade? And where do you see it heading?
Decade. I mean, I used to have to do software development with Perl and no Git. I mean, if we were lucky, we had.
You're aging yourself now, Chad.
I know. There was a funny meme. I don't have it. I think I saved it forever, where somebody did it was like the Rosetta Stone, and then it just said, great, Perl, because Perl is just kind of very objective. There weren't a ton of rules, right? You'd go into somebody's code and be like, what are they doing here? But so just seeing CI/CD development tools become more commonplace really in the last 5 years, I'm talking across the board, all verticals, all industries, all sizes of enterprises. I really only see it be completely adopted in the last 5 years. I know they've been out there longer, is huge, because now we have a standard way to keep track of all the code. So that's been huge. And then it's feeding into now this what's being called vibe coding. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a very new concept.
Big buzzword right now.
But it's very true. But what everyone's, so just to finish off the thought on the coding, which is it's unfortunately it's gonna show who are the weak coders and who are the really strong ones. So who really understood what an object was in a particular language, right? When you worked with it, when you constructed it, or really how variables worked in some particular programming language. So it's gonna really put the focus, just like on any job that's going out there that may be affected by AI, is the strong performers versus the weak performers. So I think that's what we're going to see in the market for the next couple of years come and play out. But getting back to the vibe coding, what everybody's getting wrong, everybody out there is like, you got to go become a coder. You go become a coder. I'm like, no. You have to learn how to work with a coder. That's the difference. Everyone's thinking you need to become a programmer. No, you don't. You just need to understand a couple principles and become almost like a program manager or a product engineer, so that if you wanted to go create an application, this vibe coding with this using AI coding tools, just understanding a couple key concepts, and right, they're getting so sophisticated. They can do all the bug checking right away. I mean, this is another thing that changed. 6 months ago, I've used them all. 6 months ago, you'd have to go say, I'm getting this error, go fix it. Almost all of them automatically detect there was an error, and they go, I found this error. Would you like me to fix it? Yes, please. So, bug fixes, error detection's already there. So that's already gotten quicker. Just as an example, just in 6 months. Right? Maybe 9 months. But 6 to 9 months has already gotten that quick. So the point is you don't really need to know how to troubleshoot bugs. I mean, it's just getting to the point where you got to learn a couple development concepts so you can learn how to work with a developer, just like you would in the the human life versus what were these probably be called synthetic developers.
So in the large corporate environment, are you seeing a lot of vibe coding? That's kind of something where you have free for all, you're using AI and it's getting problems solved very quickly, but may or may not be scalable. Are you seeing that being used with large enterprises?
In terms of piloting and trialing things, yes. In terms of using it with their real code, no. But that's where that's a perfect use case. We've done that. I mean, it's kind of a boring one, but which is private AI coding agents. So we've been building those out for customers and even ourselves. So, we're a big company. We've got lots of intellectual property. We have to be careful. We don't want that stuff leaking out there either. Building out ones internally for ourselves so that we can use those. But yes, so no, they're not going out there free for all using the tools that are out there, but they want to take those same concepts and they just want a private model to go say, hey, look at my code. In fact, a funny story on this, there's a customer, I won't even mention the vertical because it may give them away. They actually wanted to go do an internal private coder for COBOL. So they got a lot of COBOL language. And
They have mainframes back there somewhere.
so you may be thinking, yeah, we're going to go from COBOL to Java. Okay, fine. But funny enough, they actually said, well, no, yes, they want to do some use cases, but in some cases, COBOL's so efficient, they want to take some Java application and code it back to COBOL. So it's like, oh my gosh, this language is never going away. It's like, really? Okay. You would think, hey, yeah, we're setting this up so we can go more easily get off of COBOL, transition over Java. But in some cases, it was mixed. It was just very kind of mind-blowing, interesting. And it brings up a good point. You may be able to do that. I mean, imagine a world in 5 years where you can just be like, I'm going to recode this whole thing to Go and, see how it runs, right? Maybe I'm doing it so it's, better supported in some hosting provider, or get better performance out of it, or some better set of tools that integrate with it. So I think that's going to be the next thing that nobody's talking about, which is I'm just going to move my application around to different code bases every year or 6 months.
It's funny you mentioned COBOL. I started my career at this little company called IBM, kind of a little company like HP, and I had one COBOL class in college. Now I'm aging myself, and I got stuck as a COBOL programmer for a couple months. I'm like, wait a minute, no. And fast forward, I have to laugh because everyone has always said COBOL and the mainframe are going away. Fast forward to 2025. IBM's revenues are largely still high because of the demand for mainframes and the processing power. It's
Steve, you're wasting in this podcast, buddy. You could be going back and encoding on COBOL. What are you doing?
I know, exactly. Now you aged yourself earlier, so I felt I had to make you feel better here. In large enterprise environments, what would you say separates a good engineering team from a truly elite one?
The ones that think about continuous feedback on bug reporting, those are the ones that have been more elite, meaning all the way down to the business. They made it easy whether to do business with them or to report it, or it's built in the application, or they have a very easy way to have that continuous bug reporting has been the elite ones. And then whoever's working closely with the business leaders using their application, because applications now, even inside organizations, are like boiled milk. Use it nowadays. It's like almost like the hottest app back in the iPhone craze. I'm gonna go check out this cool whatever app. There's a bunch of funny apps that I know aren't even around now. I think some of them are inappropriate, so that's why I didn't mention them. But yeah, so it's like it's kind of like the app flavor of the quarter, depending on the size of the customer. And you got to be careful. Your own application or supporting may be irrelevant if you're not out there talking to those business owners who are actually using it. So that's it. Continuous bug reporting, however they've implemented that, then being as close to the business as possible to get that continuous feedback. Because you may get bugs in that continuous feedback, but you're not going to get gaps on, we can implement that feature, right? You need it to go do this. So you're not going to get that in a bug report. So being close to those business units that are actually using your software is just super important. Those are the ones that have been elite.
And at least what I've seen, the larger the company, the more spread out the business and engineering teams are. So I think that's great advice. What do you think is the most overhyped use of AI in enterprise environments right now? All the hype, what do you think's like the most overhyped right now?
Report chatbots are still overhyped because a lot of people have just oversimplified them. And you could create a chatbot for some particular use case. Maybe it's an internal HR one, but where it always falls apart is, well, if I can't answer the question, where do I go from here? Which goes into that I got to integrate it somewhere else in the business to keep it going.
Yep.
If it's off on an island, even in for that use case, it's been overhyped. Like people come in like, yeah, answer my question right away. It's almost like an adrenaline shot. Like I launched this thing, got this chatbot, gosh, I got my answers really fast. And then when it could answer something, there's like, contact HR, send an email. Like, what? No. What is this? 2010? Like,
yeah, then it stops and you hit a wall.
Yes, exactly. So where it's overhyped, it's been oversimplified because once you do get a chatbot in, you've got to grow it. You've got to think about how it's going to interact across other businesses or even that business unit's, in my use case, right, it kind of HR chatbot. Like you got to think about the next steps when it can't answer the questions. Where do you go?
Very good point. All right. If you were to look at your AI crystal ball over the next 5 years, how do you think it might change how engineering teams are structured?
I mean, you're going to be working with a synthetic developer, whether that's all it does is bug fixes or does code coverage, so tests, unit tests. I think that's going to be the first one to fall, honestly. That's going to be working with some type of synthetic AI employee or an agent as a part of your development process.
And so you're predicting testing's kind of the first area where that'll start taking over?
Always the last thing. It's like security, right? Everybody always goes and secures the thing last, which by the way is a horrible principle. Try and do it first. I'm always a big believer, put the security in first, right? Don't just like, get to SSL TLS encryption eventually, right? Or I'll go eventually protect all of the tokens and mask them so you can't see them, right? This is how people get data losses because they don't do that stuff first. Yeah, so think of it as doing it first. And if you could set those up where it's doing unit tests day one, that means you're going to be able to iterate over things faster. I know a lot of folks that are just like, especially in startups, like that's not as important right now. And it's not, but now it's pretty easy. I mean, if I was a startup today, I would be going out having AI doing all my unit tests and just checking in with it every once in a while. Is it doing this right? Okay, right. Checking in.
What do you think will be kind of some next functions after that where AI will be able to play a bigger role in engineering teams?
I think you'll eventually start having AI product managers or program managers. So now businesses will eventually interact with them to get new features in, or as a part of that bug lifecycle process. It's in my doc, it's in the application or it's in the docs. It's not working this way. Maybe you still have some type of Jira or change tracking system which even then I think those may go away, because if you can just send it directly to that system and it can just track in a database, who cares what it is? So
the
yeah,
product manager who's supposed to keep the businesses and engineering team aligned, you could see that being a next function that is taken out by AI.
I've done some testing right now and it does pretty well. These larger models, these trillion billion parameter models. Now we'll see in the private space. I don't know. I'm talking about your Anthropics and your Chat GPTs, the 4+ models, and excuse me, Anthropics 3.7, the sonnets. You can send it a lot of information, a lot of tokens, and say, hey, here's a list of bugs, right? You have the source code and you're stored in your memory. What would you recommend that I go fix first? So that's what I'm talking about. If not
Gotcha.
full PM, definitely some type of PM assistant to say, man, there's got a lot of bugs, got a lot of issues coming in. Let's go have this thing go now look at everything and say, okay, it's going to help me prioritize it. So if it doesn't replace, definitely help augment.
Gotcha. What's some of the coolest things you're seeing out there that maybe the everyday people don't get to see between AI and machine learning? And you mentioned the testing of the bees to look at trends,
Yeah.
and monitor even the sounds they're making. What's some other crazy stuff you've seen out there, use cases that could develop into something?
I don't know about crazy ones, but I always love reading these stories. So some of these guys have already, I don't want to say they've automated their jobs, but for example, meetings, they'll have transcripts, and then they'll completely automate all their transcripts and dial it down to one email for the week. And then the email goes to their boss. Yeah, so here's what I did for the week. Think about all the stuff that was going on for Doge. Not to get political, but if you remember, they were saying, you need to send us an email that you're actually working. Okay. If I was a smart engineer, hold on, look this up. Go.
Yeah, that would be an easy one.
Yeah, that was an easy one. But I always like simple kind of engineering hacks. I always think those are kind of fun. Just that takes little things of work off the table like that. Why do I need to go figure out the meetings I was in and then send you an email every week of the work I did? This does it. People just completely automating tasks out there, like end to end, where you've got one agent or one model talking to another saying, hey, I'm going to go create, social media posts based on my style. And I'm going to review those posts based on the, is it relevant to the content? And then have something else that's looking at it for errors, and you need to make sure it's not repeating something in the market. And then that's been interesting. So, but I think the danger with that is how much of this stuff is going to be real for the next 5 years. So that's what worries me. I think you're going to get to a level of I think what we haven't talked about is we're going to get to a new level of authenticity within humans here in the next couple of years. I think we're going to really get to a point where we're going to have to look, we're going to really be able to quickly go, this is not authentic, whatever it is. And we're going to just know it's AI generated, whether it's.
Hey, so Chad, how do I know you're not AI generated right now responding to that?
That's the next one. I've already read some guys that have done that, right? So a simple one, we're like, I don't want to go to these meetings. I'm going to have an AI generated avatar. I mean, you can do it. It's already good. So those are the ones that I always laugh at, because it's half funny, but also in some cases, sometimes those are the people you do want working for you, because they're out there a little fringe thinking of why are we doing it this way, right? We could do this, this, and this, and, that can translate to a business wow, we just saved a bunch of money, or we made more money because we implemented this process. So I always love the simple hacks. I don't know what it is about them. They just bring a smile to my face. Even the old social engineering stuff. I mean, old stories, I got guys I knew that were in the white hat space that would, break into government buildings. They were under contract. They'd hire them.
No, I get it. They were paid to try to break in. And
there was a wine company down the hall from this, whatever the government building was, and somebody just rang the doorbell and they came in with a thing of wine, a whole case of wine. Hey, we just have all this extra wine for the holidays. And it's let them in, just the simplest hacks. I don't know if you ever saw the Waymo stuff, AI cars. It's AI related.
In Arizona, we have those everywhere.
So go put a traffic cone on the hood and see what happens. Hilarious, right? I love the simple hacks. That's just an extreme example, right? And I didn't make this up. Somebody did this. There's
if I go get arrested for putting a traffic cone on the hood of a Waymo, I'm going to be calling you.
I'm just saying, there's already videos out there, right? Even from somebody, there was another one. This has been out here for years. I follow all this kind of stuff, a facial recognition detection of cameras and videos. Some younger kid figured out if he wore some special kind of pattern squiggly shirt, it messed it all up. So even from the social engineering hacks to simplest ones, I would say those are the ones that just kind of, I think, are the coolest. They're not the business coolest. But I think the point of those stories is you've always got to take a look back at your use case and try and simplify how this applies to what you're doing in the business.
I think that's great advice. Chad, thanks for getting uncensored with us today. Excited to see how you help shape the next chapter of AI in the industry from a tech leadership perspective at large. Any final shout outs or advice for tech leaders navigating change?
Dig a little deeper. Just don't read the thing on the back of the CIO magazine. There was a running joke with some of us back in the day that we only went to the cloud because someone wrote it, read about it on the back of CIO magazine, right? Back when we had magazines. Dig a little deeper. Form up some committees and teams. Don't just trust one person, right? Get an SME that knows the material. Maybe that's doing the job, unfortunately, right? But get somebody that knows the material, and don't just trust just a data scientist, because they'll do the cool projects, but they won't verify if it's important to the business. So you got to get business leaders involved, get some subject matter experts that's using that data for that particular use case. And then, of course, right, any IT staff has to be involved along with those data scientists. So my last kind of words of wisdom. That's where I'm seeing the most success. So there's the quick hack.
Great advice. Appreciate it. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. And if this episode sparks something, share it, subscribe, or pass it along. And just remember, the best leaders don't wait, they build. Thank you, everybody.